Alright, today we're going to be looking once again at slope-intercept form. Then we talked about this yesterday in the last lesson, and I want to just reiterate, review the steps involved in getting a linear equation or an equation in slope-intercept form. If you'll remember, slope-intercept form is this form right here, where y is by itself and m is multiplied by x. The m is your slope, b is your y-intercept. So when you're given an example like number 1, the first thing you're going to need to do is make sure that it's in y equals mx plus b form. Now because this equation that you're given, because this y is not by itself, I can't figure out what my slope is, and I can't figure out what my y-intercept is. So I'm going to do some algebra things to solve and get this y by itself. So let's start by looking at what is being done to this y. I have a positive y here, and I need to look at what's being done to that. Apparently it's being added by a positive 1x. So how do I remove that? I'm going to do the opposite of adding 1x, which is subtracting 1x from both sides. Now 1x minus 1x cancels out and leaves me y on the left hand side. Over here, notice that 3 is a constant and negative 1x is an x. Those are not like terms, so I cannot put those together and try to add or subtract them. So what I'm going to do, because I'm trying to write this in this form, I'm going to put the x value in the front. See how the x value is here? So that's going to be negative 1x. And then that's a positive 3, so that's going to be plus 3. Now you'll notice I have my equation in this correct form. And because of that, I know exactly how to graph this equation. I can take this equation and I can line some things up and say, okay, I know where I'm supposed to begin. Remember, you begin with your b. That's your starting point. B is your y-intercept, and remember that means the place it crosses the y-axis. So over here on my graph, I have an x and a y-axis. This b value, which happens to be 3 in this equation, is where I'm crossing my y-axis. So over here, I'm going to count positive 3 on my y-axis, right there. And I'm going to use my slope, which is this number here. Notice, slope is negative 1. And if you remember, if you're going to graph, you need that to be a fraction. So how do you make a whole number a fraction? You put it over 1. So now you know your rise and your run. Because that's a negative 1, I'm going to go down 1 and 1 to the right. That's going to give me my next point. And I can do that several times. Down 1, 1 to the right. Down 1, 1 to the right. I can even do the opposite of those. I can do up 1, 1 to the left. Up 1, 1 to the left. And continue my line out so that I have a good solid straight line. So that would be how you're going to draw a line with the given equation. Alright, so let's move up and look at another example. See if I can get this to move. There we go. I have this example which shows that 3x minus y is equal to negative 6. And because this is not in the form that we're used to, or the form that we're looking for, which is slope-intercept form, we're going to solve this for y so that it will be in slope-intercept form. So the first thing I'm going to look at is what is with my y. Well, first notice this is a negative y, and it has a positive 3x added to it. So we're going to subtract 3x so that it moves over here to the other side. That's a 3 there. Now, 3x minus 3x is going to cancel to 0. Notice here I have minus y that needs to be left here on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, I have negative 6 and negative 3x. Because I'm trying to get this in y equals mx plus b form, I am not going to want to put minus 6 first. I want to put my minus 3x first, and then my minus 6. Now, I almost have this in y equals form. The only thing that's wrong is I have this negative out here in front of this y. And we know that that is actually a negative 1 that's multiplied by y. So we're going to do the opposite of multiply, which is divide by negative 1. And remember, if you do that on one side, you have to do it on the other, and you have to do it to every single term. So I divided everything by a negative 1. By doing that, I have now made this a positive y, and this becomes negative 3 over negative 1 is going to be positive 3x. Negative 6 divided by negative 1 is going to be positive 6. Now I have my equation in y equals mx plus b form. I know that this is my m and this is my b. To do my graphing, I always begin with the b. So I'm going to go to my axes, and I'm going to look for the y-axis, which is the vertical one, and I'm going to graph positive 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. Right about there. And I'm going to look at my slope, which you know needs to be written in fraction form so that I have a rise and a run. Since this is a whole number, it's going to be 3 over 1. Since that's positive, I know I'm going to be going up 3 and 1 to the right. Whoops. And I'm running out of graph, so let's go over the other way, and let's go down 3 and 1 to the left, which is there. Oops, I need to erase that one. Try that again. Down 3, 1 to the left, should be right there. Down 3, 1 to the left, and you can continue that until you have several points that give you a nice straight line. So for our bottom example down here, once again, we want to solve this for y. So we're going to take and we're going to get the y by itself so that it's in y equals mx plus b form. So first I'm going to notice that this is a negative 3y here, and what is being done to that is it's being added by 2x. So just to remove that, I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. That gives me all my x's on the right hand side now. I'm going to bring down my negative 3y. I'm going to bring down my negative 2x and bring down my negative 9. Remember, those are not like terms, so they cannot be combined. Now I have something being multiplied by my y, so to remove it, I'm going to divide it by negative 3. And remember, I have to divide that all the way across. This becomes positive 1y, which is what we want. Positive 2/3 x. It won't reduce, but we did remove our negatives. And negative 9 divided by negative 3 is going to be positive 3. So because we now have this in y equals mx plus b form, we can see that our m and our b are right there, and now we can graph. So we're going to begin with our b. So we're going to graph the y-intercept, which is what the b stands for. It's crossing this y-axis at positive 3, right in there. And my slope tells me to move 2 positive up and 3 positive to the right. And then up 2 over 3 again. Up 2 over 3 until you get a line. There's that one. Now, when you're given this equation, you have several kids that are going to make they're confused because something's missing. You don't have a constant in this problem. That's okay, because when you don't have a constant, it just makes your solving that much easier. We're still going to try to get our y by itself. So the only thing that's with this y is this 3 that's being multiplied. So we're going to divide by 3 on both sides to remove that. So that's going to give us y equals 2x. Now this is, even though it doesn't look like it, it still is in the correct form. It is in y equals mx plus b form. The only thing is, what is our b going to be? Well, actually, it's 0. This is what you call a direct variation. We've done direct variations in the past. A direct variation is when it cuts right through 0, 0. And if you look, your starting point here is 0. That is called the origin. So that point is where we're going to start our graph. Then our slope needs to be converted into a fraction so that we can have a rise and a run. So that slope of 2 can be turned into 2 over 1, and then we can go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, several times, as many times as you need. 2 is all that's required to make a line, but you can use more. And there it is. On this example, when you go to solve for y, you'll notice that you have a positive 4y, and you're needing to get the x away from that, so we're going to subtract x from both sides, leaving positive 4y on the left and negative x plus 8 on the right. Now we need to remove the 4 that's being multiplied, so we're going to divide by 4 all the way across, and that leaves y equals. Now we have an issue here. Sometimes this causes a problem because a lot of kids think that this is negative 4x. Well, actually this is not. What is this number that's right in front of this x that you can't see? It's a 1. So you need to be sure that you're looking at that as a negative 1x over 4. Now we're going to separate that and turn negative 1/4 into its own number. And we're going to put the x out beside it. That's because we need to know what our slope is. And then we're going to take 8 divided by 4, and that's going to be our y-intercept. Now we have it in y equals mx plus b form. We're going to start with our b, and we're going to graph that. So positive 2 on the y-axis is over here. Then notice your slope is negative 1 over 4, so that tells me to go down 1 and 4 to the right, down 1, 4 to the right, and graph. Hopefully yours is straighter than mine. Now, in some situations, they're going to give you an equation, they're going to give you ordered pairs, and they're going to say, okay, which ordered pairs are solutions of this equation? So you're going to take the equation and you're going to plug your ordered pairs in and see which one comes out equal. So I'm going to start with A, I'm going to plug in my x's and y's into my equation. So 2 times -7 minus 5 times, notice I'm putting my numbers in parentheses, equals 1. I'm going to take and work everything on the left. See what that comes out to. And I'm working it out by hand. You can work it out with your calculator if you want. Notice that this comes out equal. Everything on the left is equal to 1. So, is this a solution of this equation? Yes, it is. Now you're going to try 7-3. So I'm going to take this part B and I'm going to do the same thing over here. Plug in your 7 for your x and your 3 for your y. Solve that problem. That comes out to -1, which is not equal to 1. So that one is not an answer. But notice that this says which ordered pairs. That means I need to keep going because there may be more than one answer. So let's try the 2 and the 1. That gives me -1 again, which is not going to equal +1. And last of all, those negative signs don't want to work too well. Oops. Erase that. 5. In place of the y, I'm going to put in my -1 equals 1. -4 plus 5 is going to be +1. And so because that's equal to 1, that's also going to be an answer or a solution. Another common question that they may come up with is just asking you the slope. If you try to look at this equation and tell me the slope, you're going to have difficulties because the only way you're going to be able to tell is if it's in y equals mx plus b form, slope-intercept form. And the only way to see that is to solve for y. So we're going to do the same old tricks that we've been doing. We're going to get rid of, let me get this line out of the way. We're going to get rid of the 3x first and get this y by itself. So we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. That leaves me -y equals -3x plus 6. Now we're going to divide everything by a -1 all the way across. And I ran out of room, so I'm going to move over here. So my y is going to equal +3x, and notice a -3 divided by -1 would be positive. +6 divided by -1 would be -6. Now, before you go to the next problem, make sure you answered the question. It says, what is the slope? Well, if you'll remember, the slope is going to be the number multiplied by your x. So I'm going to answer my question like this. Slope is equal to 3. Notice I did not write x. X is not the slope, just the 3. Another question they may ask you is, what's the y-intercept? Well, if it's in y equals mx plus b form, the y-intercept is going to be the b part. So all we have to do is get this equation into y equals mx plus b form. So I'm going to look at this and say, okay, I think I'll distribute this 4, and that's going to get this in the correct form. Now that I have it in the correct form, this number at the back is my b, so that is going to be my y-intercept.